So, today we're going to dive into the really complex world of narcissism. We're going to focus on something that's, well, it's deeply unsettling. It's this duality between the charming, wonderful person everyone sees in public and the completely different, harmful reality that only a few people ever get to experience behind closed doors. You have to understand this hidden contradiction to understand the full picture.
I want you to think about that for a second. You've probably met someone like this. They're incredibly charismatic, super confident, and they just seem to say and do all the right things, especially when there's an audience. This perfect social image is often the first thing you see, and for most people, it's the only side they'll ever see. But it begs a really important question. What happens when that audience is gone? All right, let's start with the public performance, what we're calling that enchanting social mask. And this isn't just about being friendly or outgoing. No, this is a carefully, meticulously constructed identity. And it really only has one main goal: to win over everyone's admiration and trust. And you know what? The performance is brilliant. I mean, the public persona is like a highlight reel of all the best human traits: charisma, confidence, even things like generosity and altruism. They can play any part: the super helpful neighbor, the colleague everyone looks up to, or the partner who seems just absolutely devoted whenever they're in a social setting. This is the mask, and it is incredibly convincing. But here's the key. This charm is not spontaneous. It is a strategic construction. Every witty comment, every seemingly generous act, it's all calculated. It's all designed to secure what psychologists call narcissistic supply, which is basically a constant, never-ending stream of admiration, validation, and recognition. What's really fascinating, in a way, is just how adaptable this mask is. It's almost like a chameleon-like ability to instantly read a room, figure out what people want to see, and then perfectly mirror those expectations back to them. So in front of one group, they might be this bold, decisive leader. In front of another, a deeply compassionate, attentive listener. The strategy changes, but the goal is always the same: get the most admiration possible.
But of course, a performance like that needs an audience. So what happens when the curtain finally falls? What happens when they're behind closed doors? Well, the mask comes off, and a profoundly, shockingly different reality emerges.
Just look at the contrast here. It's night and day compared to the public persona we just talked about. In private, all that charm gets replaced with criticism, by subtle or covert humiliation, by pure disdain. Manipulation and control become the main ways they interact. And that punitive silence, the infamous silent treatment, it's used as a weapon. All of this adds up to a very serious pattern of emotional abuse. So why the huge switch? Well, in public, the goal is admiration, but in private, once a relationship is secured, that goal gets replaced by an overwhelming, all-consuming need for control. The private space is no longer a stage, it's a territory for domination, a place where they can wield power without any fear of public judgment.
This dramatic split is so consistent, it's often described using a really powerful metaphor from literature, one that's also recognized as a pretty accurate psychological framework: the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde mechanism.
I mean, this table lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? It's a perfect side-by-side. On one side, you've got the public Dr. Jekyll, charming, confident, strategically kind. And on the other, you have the private Mr. Hyde, manipulative, calculating, and driven by that absolute need for control. It is a complete and total split.
So you might be wondering, how can two personas that are so contradictory exist in the same person? Well, psychology explains this with a concept called a functional split. The easiest way to think about it is as a powerful defense mechanism. It rigidly separates behaviors and even emotions into different compartments. This allows these two completely different realities to exist at the same time, all to protect a very, very fragile sense of self. Now, this Jekyll and Hyde dynamic is what fuels a very predictable, very toxic pattern: the cycle of abuse. It starts with Dr. Jekyll, who shows up with charm and idealization. But then Mr. Hyde emerges for the devaluation and eventually the discard. And then, just when you think it's over, Dr. Jekyll returns with what's called hoovering, sucking you back in, promising that the initial charm is real this time, ready to restart the whole cycle. So what makes this cycle so incredibly powerful and so hard to escape? It's a psychological tool called intermittent reinforcement. It's the unpredictable switching between the good Dr. Jekyll and the cruel Mr. Hyde that creates this intense, addictive bond. It works exactly like a slot machine. You keep pulling the lever, hoping for that occasional payout of affection, and that very uncertainty creates a deep, profound dependency. And as you can imagine, living inside that relentless cycle leaves profound, yet often completely invisible scars. The psychological and emotional toll on the person going through it is just immense.
You can see from the breakdown here just how devastating this experience is internally for the victim. The single biggest impact is something called cognitive dissonance, a state of intense mental confusion. And right behind that, you see social isolation, anxiety and depression, and a complete loss of trust in their own judgment.
And that term, cognitive dissonance, is absolutely crucial. It's the constant mental stress of trying to hold two completely conflicting ideas in your head at the same time. This person is the wonderful Dr. Jekyll, and this person is the abusive Mr. Hyde. The conflict is so intense that victims often start to doubt their own perceptions, their own memories, even their own sanity.
And this is where that public persona becomes a weapon. Victims feel so profoundly isolated because, let's be honest, who would believe them? How could this person that everyone sees as so kind and generous possibly be capable of such cruelty behind closed doors? That fear of not being believed is what silences victims and deepens their dependency on the abuser.
So all of this brings us to what's probably the most important part of this whole discussion, learning to recognize this duality. This isn't about running around and diagnosing people, it's about understanding a pattern of behavior that is incredibly, deeply damaging.
This quote right here, it just perfectly captures the heart of the problem. The real danger isn't just the cruel Mr. Hyde persona. It's the fact that it is so effectively hidden by the impeccably polished mask of Dr. Jekyll, which allows the abuse to happen right out in the open, with no consequences.
And this, right here, is why this matters so much. Understanding the Jekyll and Hyde dynamic, it's not some interesting academic or literary exercise. It is a vital, critical tool. It's a tool for recognizing a very sophisticated form of manipulation and, maybe most importantly, for validating the experiences of those who have been so deeply harmed by it.
So we want to leave you with this final thought. If the real danger isn't the monster itself, but its incredible ability to hide behind a perfect mask, then the most important skill we can develop is learning to see beyond that performance. And that leads us to the real question we should all be asking ourselves. Thank you for joining us.